The political arena was still reeling from the latest bombshell. Karoline Leavitt, once hailed as a rising star in conservative media and politics, had fled the United States under mysterious circumstances. Her sudden disappearance came just days after Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett announced that the $80 million defamation lawsuit she filed against Leavitt was being fast-tracked by the courts. A federal judge had unexpectedly approved a motion to expedite the case, triggered by new, explosive evidence Crockett's legal team quietly submitted. Up until that point, Leavitt had dismissed the lawsuit as a desperate political stunt, claiming Crockett was using the legal system to silence opposing voices. She was smug in interviews, confident on social media, and relentless in her messaging. Her supporters rallied behind her, echoing her narrative of victimhood and free speech. But behind the scenes, cracks had started to form. The evidence, according to insiders close to the case, was substantial and devastating. While exact details were sealed temporarily by the court, multiple sources confirmed it included recorded phone calls, internal emails, and direct testimony from former Leavitt staffers. The material allegedly proved Leavitt knew her statements about Crockett were false, and worse, that they were part of a calculated smear campaign coordinated with unnamed political operatives. When news broke that the judge had agreed to Crockett's request for an expedited trial, the Leavitt camp went into lockdown. Scheduled media appearances were suddenly canceled. Spokespeople stopped returning calls. Her typically aggressive Twitter feed went silent. At first, her silence was seen as strategic. But within 48 hours, silence turned to suspicion. It was a local reporter in New Hampshire who first uncovered the shocking truth. Leavitt had boarded a private jet from a small, private airfield near Portsmouth in the dead of night, destination unknown. Security footage showed her arriving in a black SUV, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, pulling a single roller suitcase. A visibly tense assistant handed her an envelope as she boarded. There was no public statement. No press release. No explanation. News of her disappearance spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed variations of Karoline Leavitt on the run and $80 million lawsuit triggers international flight. Speculation ran wild. Was she headed to Switzerland, Dubai, or a Caribbean island with no extradition treaty? Had she gone off-grid to avoid being served further subpoenas? Or was she simply running out the clock, hoping media attention would shift elsewhere? Within hours, #WhereIsCaroline was trending nationwide. Back in Washington, Jasmine Crockett wasted no time seizing control of the narrative. In a brief but forceful press statement, she addressed the country, "This lawsuit isn't about politics. It's about truth. And no one, no matter how powerful or popular, gets to lie and walk away without consequence." Crockett didn't need to say more. Her calm, poised demeanor contrasted sharply with Leavitt's apparent panic. The optics were brutal. One woman stood firm under legal pressure, the other vanished at the first sign of accountability. Legal analysts quickly weighed in, noting that fleeing the country in the midst of an active civil case, especially one involving possible criminal implications, would only hurt Leavitt's defense. It could trigger asset freezes, sanctions, and even additional legal troubles if she was found to be obstructing justice or evading court orders. Already, Crockett's attorneys had filed emergency motions to track and preserve Leavitt's assets, citing her suspicious and evasive behavior. Meanwhile, political allies who had once championed Leavitt were eerily quiet. Some distanced themselves with vague statements about letting the process play out. Others deleted tweets in support of her entirely. No one was willing to speak in her defense now, not without knowing where she was or what else might come to light. The once confident commentator turned political operative had become a ghost in less than 72 hours. Her story, once a tale of rising influence and media savvy, had taken a dramatic, almost cinematic turn. From Capitol Hill corridors to newsroom panels, the question loomed: why would Karoline Leavitt run if she had nothing to hide? And while the nation speculated, Jasmine Crockett waited patiently. Her legal team was already preparing the next phase of the case, emboldened by the fact that their opponent had, in the court of public opinion, all but surrendered. As Karoline Leavitt remained out of reach, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stepped deeper into the spotlight, not out of vanity, but out of necessity. With the lawsuit gaining traction and her opponent gone silent, Crockett recognized the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just about defending her name anymore, it was about drawing a line in the sand. Lies, she believed, had become a dangerous weapon in modern politics, and it was time someone made it costly to wield them recklessly. The media gathered outside the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., hoping for a glimpse of Crockett's next move. She delivered a short but powerful statement. When people abuse their platforms to deliberately mislead, to defame, and to destroy reputations, they must be held accountable, she said, flanked by her legal team. This case is not about silencing speech. It's about stopping the kind of speech that destroys lives and undermines truth. No one, no matter how wealthy, how loud, or how politically connected, is above the law. Crockett's tone was calm, controlled, and resolute. The same woman who had once delivered fiery speeches on the House floor was now strategically surgical. Her team had filed additional motions to freeze Leavitt's assets, citing her sudden departure as a clear sign she was attempting to evade justice. Within 48 hours, several of Leavitt's accounts were locked. Property records showed federal interest filed against 2 of her real estate holdings, and one of her LLCs was subpoenaed for financial records. The message was clear. Running wasn't an escape, it was an admission. In the absence of her presence, Leavitt's defense team tried to take the reins. A hastily released statement claimed she had left the country for personal security reasons, and insisted that she intended to return at an appropriate time. But their words rang hollow. No itinerary. No video message. No Zoom court appearance. Just silence where there had once been defiance. Even longtime allies began to turn. One prominent conservative commentator who had once championed Leavitt's rise as a young, fearless voice, now distanced himself publicly, saying, "This is not the time to disappear. If she believes she's innocent, she should fight this openly." Former supporters in political circles deleted posts, scrubbed endorsements, and dodged press questions. The isolation was swift and brutal. Meanwhile, public opinion was shifting firmly in Crockett's favor. Editorials praised her for taking a stand. Legal analysts across cable news agreed the expedited process signaled strong evidence. Supporters rallied around her, not just as a victim, but as a fighter who had the courage to take her battle beyond soundbites and social media outrage. Behind closed doors, Crockett's legal team continued its work. They were building more than just a case, they were constructing a precedent. If they could prove that Leavitt not only lied, but coordinated those lies as part of a broader strategy to discredit a sitting congresswoman, the outcome could shake political media to its core. The damages being sought were not symbolic. They were rooted in lost endorsements, threats to Crockett's safety, and the measurable cost to her career, both financial and emotional. Crockett, however, was careful not to portray herself as the sole victim. In her public remarks, She often pivoted to a bigger point: the cost to the public. When lies are repeated long enough, they become beliefs, she said during one interview. This isn't just about my name. It's about our democracy and what happens when misinformation becomes a political tool. While Crockett stayed busy in court, investigative reporters kept digging. Where was Karoline Leavitt? A few unconfirmed sightings emerged. Someone resembling her seen at a resort in the Maldives, another at an airport in Budapest, but nothing stuck. No official confirmation. No interviews. No sightings from any verified source. The mystery deepened as whispers began to surface about potential criminal exposure beyond the civil case. Some speculated that Leavitt's smear campaign may have involved misused donor funds, coordinated misinformation campaigns, and even forged documents. Crockett's team remained tight-lipped on those rumors, but their silence only fueled the fire. One thing was certain: Karoline Leavitt was no longer a political force. She had become a cautionary tale, a symbol of what happens when arrogance meets accountability and flees in the face of truth. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett stood taller than ever. Her lawsuit was no longer just a legal fight, it had become a cultural moment, a rallying cry for integrity in politics. And as the world waited for Leavitt's next move, Crockett made hers, calm, focused, and backed by the power of truth.